Shabbat Shalom, friends. It's good to see you. I know they're trickling in from Torah study, and will make their way here as we go. But you're here, and we're here, and I hope that you're feeling well, all things considered in this complicated world of ours, and sometimes exasperating world of ours. But thank God we can come to this space, and we can collect ourselves and join together as a community to pray, to learn, to sing. That's what we're here to do. So we'll do our best together and start nice and easy, as we like to do. As we say first thing in the morning, an expression of gratitude. Thank God for a new day, a new beginning, that life goes on. We wake up to a new day with Modeh Ani Lefanecha on page 186. Modeh Ani Lefanecha Melech Chai V'Kayam Shehechazarta Bi Nishmati Bechemla Rabba emunatecha. On page 195, don't let me fall as a stone falls upon the hard ground, and don't let my hands become dry as the twigs of a tree when the wind beats down the last leaves. And when the storm raises dust from the earth with anger and howling, don't let me fall. I've asked for so much, but as a blade of your grass in a distant wild field, let's drop a seed in the lap of the earth and dies away. Sow in me your living breath, as you sow a seed in the earth. Baruch atah Adonai rofecho basar umafli la'asot. Turning the page to 196. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul, and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. Nisim B'chol Yom has us acknowledge the miraculous, has us remember the miraculous, that there are miracles in our lives, in our world, that even when things can feel very bleak, there is good. And as has become our custom, before chanting these blessings, we share maybe some good news we have, maybe some updates we have, maybe something you saw, experienced. The reason I wasn't with you last week is because I was at my nephew's bar mitzvah in South Orange, and it was beautiful, it was lovely, and so nice to be together. News, updates, good news. Some of us will be together. I hope many of us will be together tonight. We'll have a nice event, farewell dinner, and I would love to see you there. As I mentioned to some last night, you can come to Havdalah. Some people are weary of the dinner and other pieces. Havdalah is at 6 in the sanctuary here, and we'll be in our Mass, and there'll be one or two speakers even around the Havdalah. So feel free to come to that at 6 o'clock, before the big festivities. thank God. That's a milestone, isn't it? Yes, I spoke to Goldie. Yeah, I know. Good. I'm glad you're well, Ivan. Well, for all of the good, and God willing, all of the good still to come, Nisim B'chol Yom, page 198. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sek v'ivina lehavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechim et tzadei kaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten li'aif koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael betifara. And thank God we're so fortunate to live in a time when we can study Torah, live Torah, celebrate Torah, and we do join in the blessing for Torah and Torah study at the top of 204. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. On 206, the words from our Mishnah. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. With that, we do continue with Chatzi Kaddish, which you can find on 224. Please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah B'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon Uv'chayei techol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uv'izman karib V'meru Amen Yehei shemei Rabbah mivorach Le'olam u'lam me'almaya Yitbarach Yiparach v'yishtabach V'yitpar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudesha b'richu Le'olam min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Tamiram b'yalma B'meru, Amen. Lai, 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 Lie, lie, ya, lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Baruch hu et Adonai, Hamivorach, Hamivorach. Baruch Adonai, Hamivorach. Leolam, Leolam Vaed. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Now and forever. As we remain standing, we can read together on the bottom of 228. Praised are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot. Together we sing Shema, page 232. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. We may be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'am v'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvlechtecha vaderech, ushachbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu litotafot beineinecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kiddushim leloechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher Hotzeiti Etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. As we continue in our prayer book, we can turn together to page 237. At the top of that page, if people fall, can they not also rise? If they break away, can they not return? The stork in the sky knows when to migrate. The dove and the swallow know the season of return. What human instinct knows the time to turn back? What cue sparks the conscience of the soul? We pray to sense this day anew, attuned to the call of sacred living. Our song of freedom, Mi Chamocha, page 240. Mi Chamocha, Ba'elim Adonai. Mi Chamocha, Nedar B'Kodesh. Nora Tehilot, O Sefer. Shira Chadasha Shibechu Geulim Leshimcha Al Sefat Hayam Yachad Kulam Hodu Bihim Lichu V'Yameru Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vaem. Sor Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Uftechenu Mecha Yehuda veYisrael. Go Aleinu Adonai Tzivot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Our tefillah, our most central collection of prayers, begins on page 242. Please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fiya gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar. Micha mocha ba'al givurot, umidom melach, melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emanata lahachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom, Kakatuv al yad neviecha, V'kara ze el ze ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch kol haaretz, Kevodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir Shimcha bechol haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, Vehu Yashmienu, Berachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Yitzion, Ledor vador, Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid God lecha, Ulenetzach netzachim kedushacha nakdish, V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, Leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated. On page 253, we offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, For Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love, we offer thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Our prayer of thanksgiving is Modim Anachnu Lach, and an interactive, a responsive version of this prayer is found on page 257. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations, Modim Anachnu Lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, Modim Anachnu Lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, Modim Anachnu Lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression, Modim Anachnu Lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, Modim Anachnu Lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom, Modim Anachnu Lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose, Modim Anachnu Lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears but by our hopes, not by our words but by our deeds. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. Every Shabbat we join at this point in our prayer for greater peace in our world, in our nation, in our own community, even a greater level of peace within our own heart. And so it is that we turn now to this prayer that our people have offered for so many generations, Sim Shalom, in hopes that our world will know a greater level of Shalom, a greater level of peace, and God willing, very soon. Sim Shalom can be found on page 258. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim. V'rachamim, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha, Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Amecha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha. We'll pause for a moment or two now for the sake of our own personal prayers. Ose shalom bimroma. Uya ase shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our service for the reading of Torah this Shabbat morning, can be found beginning in your prayer book on page 364. Please rise. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Udevar Adonai Mushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadol Adonai Iti Uderomema Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai HaGedula VeHaGedura VeHaTiferet VeHaNetzach VeHaHod Ki Kol Bashamayim U'Ba'aretz Ki Kol Bashamayim U'Ba'aretz Lecha Adonai Me'Hamlacha Yamid Na'aseh Lechol Lerosh. We may be seated. Oh, you can stay up here. I'm going to just say one word. Thank you to Larry for volunteering to be our Torah reader this Shabbat morning. Just a word of introduction regarding Naso, which is a very, very full Torah portion. The second Torah portion in the book of Numbers. We started Numbers last week, the book of Bamidbar. And the term Numbers works as a title because the portion, the book will contain a great many numbers, including last week where we saw a census, and now this week we see a sort of version of a census specifically focused on portions of the Levites. And in Naso, we find a couple of big overarching headlines. In addition to the census, we find this challenging ordeal that a woman suspected of infidelity would have to undergo, called the sota. And it's a degrading, antiquated, and awful ordeal that, thank God, our tradition wrote out of existence rather quickly, where the onus was really placed on the woman to prove her fidelity and had to go through this kind of very archaic ceremony to prove herself. So we could think about that. We could also think about another aspect of this Torah portion which dealt with another group called the Nazarites. And the Nazarites were a group that were interested in separating themselves out as holier than or closer to God. And they would do this by taking part in a couple of rather extreme measures, like not cutting their hair, not drinking any wine or any products even made with grapes, no contact with the dead. And we could think about why this became such a sort of controversial group, which was also written out of our tradition. Another aspect that I think may be worth talking about too is that this is the portion where we find the priestly benediction, the prayer that we say at most life cycle events and that you've heard 100 times if you've been to a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha. That comes from this portion too. Finally, this portion also reports the conclusion of the building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, this portable synagogue our people would bring through the wilderness, and the final offerings that each tribe would make in the name of its conclusion. So there's a lot here for us to think about, and we're not going to have time for all of it, but we'll, as we like to do, pick and choose and ask some questions and see where we go given what we're thinking and what the world looks like these days. So Larry is going to read from us. Do we know where you're reading from in the portion?
1050.
Page 1050 is where Larry is.
Verse 5.
Verse 5 on 1050. So, okay. Why don't we join in the blessing that comes before our reading, which is on page 368. It looks like we are on page 1050, verse 5, and you can find that on the right side of the Torah commentary, about the second line up. And as for the Torah blessing, Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMorach, Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai, Noten HaTorah. Amen.
Amen. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael. I'm in the wrong. Okay. Israel. Ish o Isha ki yasu mikol chotat hadam limo ma'al Adonai v'ashma nefesh hahiv idvadu et chotatam asher asu Eshiv et Ashmo Berosho Bechamishito Yosef Alav V'natan Asher Asam Lo Bim Ein Laish Goel Hashiv Hasham Alav Hasham Hamushav Ladonai Lakohen Milvad El Hakipurim Asher Yekaper Bo Adon Alav V'chol teruma mikol kadshe b'nei Yisrael asher yigru lakohen lo yeh Ve'ish et kadashav lo yiyu. Ish asher yitain lakohen lo yiyeh.
We'll join in the blessing afterwards. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu.
Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yashikov. Beautiful, Larry. Thank you, Larry. We're going to hear our Haftorah before we have a chance to talk a little bit. Haftorah for the portion of Naso takes us to the book of Judges. We're on page 1256, 1256 in the Torah commentary. And the blessing for Haftorah, if you'd like, can be found back in the prayer book, page 370. 372. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar binim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo v'Yisrael amo v'yeh ha'emet v'tzedek.
There was a man named Manoah from Zorah. He was a Danite clan, and his wife was barren, never having given birth. One day an angel of the Eternal appeared in the woman and said to her, "Yes, you are barren and unable until now to have children, but you shall be pregnant and give birth to a son. Take care not to drink wine or beer or eat anything impure, for you shall soon be pregnant and give birth to a boy. His hair is never to be cut, because from the womb he is God's Nazarite. He will begin to liberate Israel from the hands of the Philistines." The woman went and told her husband, "A man of God came to me. He looked like an angel of God, very frightening. I didn't ask him where he had come from, and he did not tell me his name. All he said to me was, 'You shall soon be pregnant and give birth to a boy. You are not to drink wine or beer, nor eat impure food, because the boy shall be God's Nazarite from the womb to the day of his death.'" Manoah then turned to the Eternal in prayer, saying, "Eternal One, please let your messenger return to us and teach us how to bring up our child." God listened to Manoah's prayer, and the angel of God returned to the woman as she was sitting in the field, and again her husband Manoah was not there. The woman ran quickly and told her husband, "The man who came here that day has shown up again." So Manoah followed his wife and came to the man, saying to him, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" "Yes, I am," he answered. "May your words come true." And Manoah, "What do you prescribe for the boy? What is he to do?" The angel of Eternal said to Manoah, "Your wife must do exactly as I instructed her. She must eat nothing that comes from a grapevine. She must not drink wine or beer. She must eat nothing impure. Let her do exactly as I instructed her." Then Manoah said to the angel of the Eternal, "Please let us detain you while we cook a kid for you." The angel of the Eternal said to him, "Even if you were to detain me, I could not eat your food. If you want to make a burnt offering, offer it up to the Eternal." Noah had not realized that this angel that this was an angel of the Eternal. Manoah then said to the angel, "What is your name? We would like to honor you when your words come true." "Why is it," said the angel of the Eternal, "that you ask my name? It belongs to another order." So Manoah took the kid and some grain, put it on a rock, and offered it up to the Eternal. As Manoah and his wife watched, they saw something extraordinary. As the flame rose skyward from the altar, the angel of the Eternal went up in the flame. Seeing this, Manoah and his wife threw themselves on the ground face downward. Only then did Manoah understand that this was truly an angel of the Eternal. Never again did the angel of the Eternal appear to Manoah and his wife. So Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, because we have seen a divine being." But his wife answered him, "Had the Eternal intended to take our lives, God would not have taken from us a burnt offering and a meal offering, and would not have shown us all this and given such a message just now." In time, the woman gave birth to a child. She called him Samson. The boy grew up with the blessing of the Eternal. The Spirit of the Eternal first began to move him in the encampment of Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol.
Thank you, Hal. Very full Haftorah, fitting on a day of a very full Torah portion. So let's join in the blessing that comes following our Haftorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol amim, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'yoseh, hamdaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al haTorah v'al avodah v'al hanvi'im v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha u'menucha, lechavod u'tifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mvarchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. Before moving to our discussion, we offer Mishaberach for those in our lives and community in need of healing. So many in our world are in so much pain. They are living in pain as a result of sickness, anxiety, loss. Now's the time we pray for all who are struggling, whether of body or of spirit. And as a congregational community, our prayers are very much with Ileana Cohn, Rick Ulrich, Lynn Romsberg, Jerry Dreskin, Ann Marsden, Sarah Oken, Gary Garnick, Michael Infanti, Shirley Friedlander, Jen Jones, Jocelyn Jackson, Mary Mednitsky, Murray Kammerman, Rick Forenell, Todd Pollard, Dr. Jerry Herman, Carrie Basin, Hudson Hodge, Harriet Rosenberg, Ari Sobel, Carol Schaefer, Jordan Maverick Steinberg, Tricia Tepper, Barbara Cohn, Mary Parker, Louis Alahat, Karen Bowen, Joan Major, Marcy Gittler, Mindy Fisher, Stephen Trombecki, Lisa Ager Brown, William Broderick, and Lily Tepper. If there's a name you'd like to add to this list, someone for whom you offer a Mishaberach this Shabbat morning, please feel free to do so now as my glance meets yours. Our prayer for healing, Mishaberach, page 371. Mishaberach avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu. Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Okay, friends. So, as is our custom, we'll spend a couple minutes just talking. We have Maso, a complicated portion, a long Torah portion. We have the issue of census, Nazarites, Sota. There's a lot to unpack here if we so choose. Priestly benediction, of course. The Levites. We can go just about anywhere. I know it's a lot to take on all at once. So, what do you think, Larry?
Also in this portion is the priestly benediction as well.
Yeah, as I said, I said that. Priestly benediction, Birkat Kohanim, and it's become, in this sort of very ironic way, this portion contains elements that we were so quick to sort of write off and say, this is not us, this is not Judaism, this is not the Judaism of the modern world. And in the very same portion is a very brief prayer that has stuck with our people since the beginning. So we see really up close and personal sort of the challenge of Torah right in this portion, that there's some elements that are very hard and feel like they come to us from another world. And then there are elements that feel very, very real, very relatable, and applicable. And the priestly benediction is beautiful. We say it for our bar mitzvahs, we say it at weddings, we say it, many of us on Friday night to our children. It's really withstood the test of time. Ivan.
I can't really find the portion that bothered me, but you recall that repeatedly, when you serve God, you do it in a certain way. He is very specific. And if you don't follow the rules, like Aaron's two sons,
Yes.
you disappear in the fire.
Yes.
And here he calls one of the tribes. I can't remember whether it's Gershon or Merari or whatever.
That's for the beginning of the portion.
I'm giving you this responsibility, but I'm making it very impersonal so that you don't get so involved.
Yeah, I know the verse you mean. It's so we hear about the three subsets of the Levites, Kohath, Merari, and Gershon, and they're supposed to have their own very strict sort of rules to abide by.
I'm recalling that he gives every segment of the Levites something special to do, which is like saying, you support your synagogue,
Yeah.
you make sure that the underpinning work is good, you make sure that the altar is good,
Yeah.
you make sure that the Torahs are written.
That's right.
He gives everybody a very specific responsibility to supporting Judaism.
That's exactly right. So the part that Ivan is referring to, it comes to us from chapter 4, and that's about page 1043, 1044. And, when we're thinking about the Levites, they're the custodians of the early synagogue. Little C and big C custodian. They're the caretakers of this sacred space. And it's their job to make sure that it is up to standard, up to code, we could say. And that's what they'll do. And it shows a number of things. One, Moses can't do it all alone, and he has to sort of delegate, designate, and allowing us to reach the community fully, allowing us to educate our children fully, everything from the fact that the lights are on to the curriculum is solid in the religious school. It's upon all of us to make sure that the synagogue is a functioning, viable organism, and that's what we're here to do. That's what so many of us are here to do. Victor, do you have a comment?
Yes. For me, it's been a pleasure to know you, Rabbi, and I want to wish you all the mazel tov on your new journey.
That's very kind, Victor. That means a lot. I appreciate that. We're not at the end yet. We're getting closer to the end all the time, but we're not there yet. It goes without saying that this group means so much to me, and we've endured so much together over 10 years, 10 very full years, where we've watched the world turn upside down and then some. And thank God we've had each other as we've navigated so much together, both times of joy and times of sadness. So we have this Saturday morning. Next Saturday morning, we have our last bar mitzvah of the year. We're going to have a lovely bar mitzvah. And then my last Saturday morning is that following Saturday, which is the 25th, June 25th.
Will the new rabbi be there that day too?
On June 25th? I don't think so. As far as I know, no. But let's see. But if you haven't met her yet, she's delightful. She's wonderful. And I know you'll embrace her with open arms. She'll bring her own style and personality to this group, of course, as we all do. Not so. How?
The creation of the Nazarites.
Yes, I wanted to touch on that.
It says that the eternal created this, or created, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's a good
created
point.
this, as even shown in the October. How do the elders justify
Yeah.
the creation of this
Yeah.
sect, if you would?
Yeah, well, I guess we could say that God created them, as God has created all. Another way we might put it is God anticipated them. This idea that there would come a group of people who feel inclined to set themselves apart and to try to go above and beyond. And so we have a series of rules for them, and what we should do with these people. On the one hand, we could say all these people who have these, for lack of a better word, sort of extremist tendencies, we're going to put them in a box. We're going to give them, okay, if you fall into that category, here's what you should do. So we're trying to control them so that they don't become even more fanatical. We're trying to limit them. But at the same time, as by the time we get to the Talmud and beyond, we will be very nervous about this concept that there are people who feel that the mitzvot are not enough, and that prayer and tikkun olam and the things that we Jews do are somehow not enough for them. We believe in community. We believe in sticking together. We believe in following the same rules. We believe in following the same ethical code. And for someone to try to put themselves outside of when we think of the tragic story of Nadav and Abihu, and maybe this is why we sort of now, we have God anticipating this kind of behavior. We see it with Nadav and Abihu, we've seen it with others, and God's saying, well, okay, if there are going to be within human nature, if this is something that we're going to observe, well, let's give them at least an outlet that feels somewhat healthy. And so that's what this portion attempts to do.
If you believe, though, what was written in the hospital,
Yes, it comes from God.
it comes from God. So you could also look at it as a test of you don't, you don't know what's right if you don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe this was a way of God saying, this is what could happen,
mm,
and use it as a baseline of whether you want this or you want
it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's well put, and of course we're reading this through our own lenses, and we are a community that believes in equality and togetherness and fairness and inclusion. These are all very progressive terms. If we were sitting in another shul, in another neighborhood, we might be applauding the Nazarite, and applauding the intricacies of the Haftorah and saying, this is an option for us. We are the Nazarites of today. We're gonna put ourselves above and closer to God, above the people, above the norm, above the 613 commandments, and somehow position ourselves as holier.
But we've seen that happen all throughout history.
Of course.
Whether it be because of religion or because of
Yep.
leadership.
Yep.
We've seen that extremist movement.
I taught at least one series on Talmudic responses to extremism. That might have been a few years ago now. How the Talmud will be very nervous about zealotry and those who sort of take it upon themselves and believe that they alone have access to God and they alone can somehow speak with God in ways that none of us can. And how that's very, very dangerous and antithetical to who we've been historically. And we see fanaticism, not just within Judaism, but within all religions, all cultures, and we see how fanaticism so quickly leads to violence, to insurrection, to use a term that we're all, I think, thinking of in various ways these days. So, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Larry.
Also, with Nazir, to me, there's sort of a warning about it that if you're going to do something and you make pledge to someone or something, you need to follow through with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
At
so,
all possible.
right, taking the sort of the moral implications out of And even if we agree on very little, we can appreciate the fact that when someone keeps their word. And maybe that's one of the few sort of silver linings of the Nazarite explanation is, look, these are people who make a vow, they make a pledge, and they stick to it. They're expected to stick to it. And how that's admirable. Even if we don't fully appreciate the vow that they're making, it's admirable. So anyway, this is not so, and gives us a lot to sort of think about and to bounce off of the world that we're living in now. And thank God we can be here to talk with each other. We're going to move to the end of our service now. As we return our Torah to the Ark, we are on page 370. And I'll ask everyone to rise once more. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai liad Moshe al shlosha divarim al shlosha divarim al shlosha divarim haolam omed Al HaTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al HaTorah ve'al ha'avodah. You have to put it actually over. Hasadim. I'll do it. Al shlosha divarim. Al shlosha divarim. Al shlosha divarim ha'olam. Al HaTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al HaTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Eitz chaim hi ve'machazikim ba v'tom heha meushar Deracheha, darchei Noam, v'chol netivoteha, shalom. Hashivenu Adonai, elecha v'nashuva, hadesh yameinu kekedem. We continue with Aleinu at the bottom of 586. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tetz gedula liotzer bereshit shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot v'lo samanu kamishpechot adama shelo sam chalkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim Umishtachavim umodim Livnei melech malchei hamachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu V'nemor v'haya Adonai Lemelech al kol haaretz Vayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad. As we remain standing for another moment, we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichronam livracha, may their memory always be for a blessing. We recall at this time those taken from our congregational community in most recent days, including Frank Pinella, uncle of Frank Amarillo, Beverly Bass, mother of Brad Bass, and Thi Nguyen, mother of Hung Kennedy. As well, we recall at this time those whose yahrzeit we mark this Shabbat: Eugene Friedman, Simon Glogauer, Rose Goodman, Chester Horowitz, Nicole Ayani, Sasson Levi, Larry Levine, Harvey Matheson, and Barry Zaleski. There's someone for whom you say Kaddish this Shabbat morning, and who care to share their name, please feel free to do so now.
Emmanuel, no. Terry, no. Maria, God.
If we are to believe the newspapers, there has been approximately 15,000 Ukrainians who have died fighting for their own country, and probably more Russians on their side. For them, fighting that terrible war, we ask that they leave.
Thank you, Hal.
And people who have died in senseless violence.
Thank you. In all their names, in all their memories, we do join together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, b'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei techol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'izman kariv v'imru, Yehei shemei Rabbah mivorach le'olam u'amei almaya, yiparak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiram bi'alma v'imru. Yehe shlomo rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Uyaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. We may be seated. Our Kiddush is in the library today, and a thank you goes to Larry. So please join us for our Kiddush afterward. As we noted, farewell dinner tonight. Hopefully I'll see some of you there. And like I said, even if you can't make it or somewhat anxious about it, come for the Havdalah at 6 o'clock, and it would be great to see you at that. 6 o'clock right here in the sanctuary. We're coming to the end of our year, so watch the bulletin, watch the announcements and Facebook for everything that's going on. Next Friday night is installation. Next Saturday is our last bat mitzvah of the year. So a lot going on, to be sure. How about a closing song? What do we think? Maybe Ein Keloheinu? That could be good. Ein Keloheinu is on 626. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kimalkeinu, Ein Kimoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michimalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Shabbat Shalom, friends.